At a nice facility in Texas, several protesters were outside, looked suspicious. Officer went over to approach and talk to them and was shot in the neck. Now, my understanding is the officer is okay, was discharged from the hospital. But it does appear that this is a dramatic escalation, as we have often seen things, they escalate. The question I often have in these circumstances is, when does it slow down? And the problem is the rhetoric in the media and the ideas and the hyperpolarization are not slowing down. So one could expect that violence will escalate. Take, for instance, the issue of ICE facilities and what we're seeing right now, as the rhetoric is becoming that there are concentration camps in this country, that Donald Trump is separating families, stealing and kidnapping people. Well, it's exactly as predicted. Last year, we had the conversation on Timcast out quite a bit. The Democrats were going to try and claim that Donald Trump was literally Hitler, and the actions he took against illegal immigrants, largely criminals, was no different than that of Nazi Germany. That's exactly what they're trying to make the claim. That's the claim they're making now. So what do we get? We get this. A cop gets shot in the neck. Now, this is following up from the DOJ's refusal to prosecute individuals who were fighting with cops. A Democrat in New York, a Democrat, I believe that might have been in Arizona. I could be getting the location wrong. But you had Jose Padilla. I know that's not his name, but that's what J.D. Vance called him. Actually fighting with cops, no charges. What do you think happens when Democrats physically assault cops and do not get charged? As predicted, it emboldens the left and the liberals. So when they engage in violence against police, they say the line has moved. Now, before, if you hit a cop, you got arrested, you got charged very serious charges, and the Democrats were concerned. This was something to take into consideration. What are the costs going to be, both legally and actual money? Well, unfortunately for us, the Trump DOJ in two instances said no charges. Brad Lander and Padilla. Because of those no charges, I think we are now seeing this escalate. I think the escalation is related. Democrats now know the cost is lower as they push the line on violence. I'd make the assumption in this story that it wasn't like the guy said he was going to go there and he was going to take this action. I think armed protesters are antsy, terrified. They're claiming Trump is Hitler and these are concentration camps and Nazi guards. And with an escalation like that and an itchy trigger finger, a cop gets shot. So what happens next? You know, Rep. McIver has been charged formally and indicted by a grand jury because she physically struck federal agents. But we are now seeing the rise of all these protests. So where does it go? Well, my friends, for the back half, a professor in California has argued California in the next 10 years may secede from the union, triggering a civil war as President J.D. Vance, the bold prediction, seeks to maintain the union, sending in federalized National Guard, triggering a wave of secessions. Oh boy, that's right. Talk of civil war is back on the menu, boys, as numerous outlets are now bringing up the subject once again. So by all means, you can say Tim Pool's talking about civil war. Guys, if it was in the news, if it had merit to be discussed, you know I would talk about it. Well, a few stories have emerged over the past several weeks, and now it's bubbled up with this professor saying it's possible. So we'll bring all of that up right now. Based on what the left is doing and saying, it looks like immigration could be that catalyst. So, my friends, we will be talking about that. Before we get started, we got a great sponsor. It's AmericanFinancing.net/Tim. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. What if you could delay your next two mortgage payments? That's right. Imagine putting those two payments in your pocket and finally getting a little breathing room. It's possible when you call American Financing today. If you're feeling stretched by everyday expenses, groceries, gas bills piling up, you're not alone. Most Americans are putting these expenses on credit cards, and there doesn't seem to be a way out. American Financing can show you how to use your home's equity to pay off that debt. You need to call American Financing today before you get to a point where you can't make those payments. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners just like you restructure their loans and consolidate debt, all without upfront fees. And their customers are saving an average of $800 a month. That's like a $10,000 raise. It's fast, it's simple, and it could save your budget this summer. Call now before it's too late. 866-890-7811. That's 866-890-7811. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net/Tim. And also, my friends, don't forget the DC Comedy Loft events are live. Go to dccomedyloft.com and check their events calendar for the Culture War Podcast Live. Tickets are going quick. August 2nd, Michael Malice versus Angry Cops, the police debate. With Alex Stein and me hosting, it is going to be wild. July 26th, we got some big names planned. We can't announce anything yet, but it's looking pretty good. We also have August 9th for our 3 events. And of course, we will be doing more. Maybe this becomes a weekly event. Could be a lot of fun. So again, dccomedyloft.com. A couple hundred seats. You can also become a member of the Timcast Discord, where we have 30 free tickets available for members. First come, first serve. Check that out at timcast.com. Let's jump into the news. We've got this from the New York Times. Police officer shot outside immigration detention facility in Texas. Several armed people were taken into custody after officers responded to a report of a suspicious person outside the detention center, officials said. Now, the initial reporting on this just yesterday, a little light. Who are these people? What is going on here? Some speculated perhaps it was illegal immigrants themselves that had shot at these ICE officers. Now, this is a cop that got shot. They say a police officer was shot outside an Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention facility in Texas late Friday night, and several armed people were taken into custody. This is the 4th of July, man. So this is why most people are not there for the news. Me, I was with family. The detention center, which is about 28 miles south of Fort Worth, holds people who are awaiting deportation or are accused of violating immigration laws. Around 11 p.m. on the 4th of July, officers from the Alvarado Police Department responded to a call about a suspicious person outside the detention center and saw someone who appeared to have a gun. One officer tried to talk to the person, and then several other people opened fire on the officer, who was wounded in the neck and flown to a hospital. The officer was treated and discharged from the hospital, the sheriff's office said. Several people tried to flee, but they were taken into custody by officers, the statement said. It was not clear how many people were taken into custody, nor whether they were still being held on Sunday morning. At this time, the motives of the suspects are unclear, the sheriff's office said. The Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE, said in an email that a group of 15 people had slashed the tires of federal vehicles and vandalized security cameras at the detention center. The department did not elaborate about the episode. The sheriff's office did not respond to questions. Initially, the reporting seemed to be unclear, but now it's clear after a statement from Tom Homan. And here you have it.
Good morning.
Let's get to the big, beautiful bill in a moment. Who were these suspects who were fired, who actually fired the shots and were later arrested? Who were they, Tom?
Look, they're your typical protesters that go from protesters to criminals. The attack on ICE officers, you've covered it many times, is up nearly 700% now. We were talking 500% a couple weeks ago, so it continues. The rhetoric against the men and women of ICE is skyrocketing, especially by members of Congress. We have senators, we have Congress people that compare ICE to the Nazis, compare ICE to racists, and it just continues. So the public thinks, well, if a member of Congress can attack ICE, why can't we? So the rhetoric has to stop. Or it's a matter of time for someone, one of the ICE officers goes down or a criminal goes down. But we already see an officer go down.
To be clear, so these were American citizens? These weren't illegals who opened fire?
No. As far as the investigation, I want to get ahead of the local investigation on this, but they appear to be agitators, people that are protesting ICE operations, damaging ICE property, want to attack ICE officers.
Okay, let's talk about the money. And
so I think it's perfectly obvious, isn't it? Tom Homan is saying he doesn't want to get in front of the investigation, get ahead of the investigation, but it looks like your typical agitators, protesters. However, even the New York Times mentioned that these people were slashing tires. This appears to be, as of right now, based on a statement from Tom Homan. I mean, this is effectively, he's the border czar, right? This is his field. These were leftist protesters vandalizing ICE property, and they opened fire on a cop. Are you surprised? I can't say that I am. Take a look at this from CNN back in June, visualizing the anti-ICE protests and government responses. They mention Protests in L.A., which have inspired protests in other major cities, have ramped up in response to Trump's immigration policies. Take a look at this map. All of these locations of various protests. Now, when I was in Chicago just over the weekend for the 4th of July, there were many people protesting Donald Trump. In fact, at the Trump International Hotel, police blocked off the street because there was a large protest. In fact, I posted an image of this. Maybe I'll pull the image up for you guys. It must be done. It must be done. Because the images are hilarious, mind you. And I think it is important that you see the protests in Chicago to understand who exactly we're dealing with. And as you can see, this woman here was defending our Constitution. We were driving down the road in Chicago, and I can't remember who is. Someone in the car yelled, "Constitution, get a picture quick!" And then Andy snapped this photo, and you can see this woman holding up a sign that says "Defending our Constitution." I understand she was trying to say Constitution. The point is, these people don't know what they're protesting. Now you may be saying, Tim, why bring up some random lady who can't spell, doesn't know words good and stuff? Because the issue is the violent extremists require the critical mass. The way the violent individuals get away with their violence is by having large groups of people create a mass of confusion. So when 200 people show up, and maybe their intentions are pure, they want to protest, it's going to be peaceful. You look, lady, you're allowed to hold your sign. I got no beef. My beef is probably with your ignorance, but I recognize your ignorance. That's why you're standing there. Sign, regardless, right? Now, what happens is the far left, if they're standing by themselves and they throw a brick, the cops are going to be like, that guy did it. But if you have a massive crowd of people, you stand in the middle of the crowd and then chuck a brick upwards. Nobody knows exactly who threw it because there's a big mass of people. Everyone then's in chaos and they run. Critical mass is extremely important. Now, in the past month, Donald Trump brought in the Marines, the National Guard, to try and shut these protests down. And sentiment from the left has been, oh, Trump is a fascist. I can't believe he's sending in the military. And now a cop is shot. Shot in the neck and airlifted. I believe that's what they said, right? Airlifted? They said it was by helicopter, right? He was wounded in the neck, flown to a hospital. Okay, so when I hear he's flown and it's an urban thing, I'm not assuming they put him in a plane. I'm assuming a helicopter comes in and picks him up. Could be wrong, though. Could be wrong. They go to mention that there's been riot. The New York Times goes on to mention the Portland Police Bureau declared a riot. Things have been expanding. And now Trump's big, beautiful bill has been passed. And what does this mean? $45 billion for ICE, with all of these leftists screaming that this is the biggest expansion of federal law enforcement. ICE is now the biggest law enforcement agency in the country. In the country. Well, my friends, I don't see how opposing law enforcement defends our Constitution. In fact, if the law says these people are illegal immigrants and need to be deported, and Trump says, I need the funding to follow the law, that is quite literally the function of our Constitution. From Yahoo News. Red states consider alligator Alcatraz spinoffs as White House urges them to follow DeSantis' lead. Lots of bears. Okay. The White House and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis are encouraging Republican states across the nation to follow Florida's lead and install their own versions of alligator Alcatraz, a remote detention facility for illegal immigrants located in the heart of the Everglades. Some red states are already warming up to the idea or already have new detention facilities in the works. We don't have alligators, but we have lots of bears. I am not aware of any plans for an Alaska version of alligator Alcatraz. Reps for Alaska's state government told Fox News' Laura Ingraham Tuesday. Quote, Dear DHS, we've got a swamp and a dream. Let's talk. South Carolina's gators are ready, and they're not big on paperwork. If I was governor, we'd bring alligator Alcatraz to South Carolina, where South Carolina Republican Rep South Carolina Rep Nancy Mace posted on X on Tuesday when Trump traveled to Florida to tour alligator Alcatraz. Fox News Digital reached out to the offices of 26 Republican governors inquiring if they'd be rolling out their own versions, with a handful stretching out from Idaho to South Carolina responding with what they have in the works. In Georgia, Brian Kemp's spokesman told Fox News the Peach State has helped lead the way in tackling illegal immigration and recently announced plans to build the largest detention facility in the nation. Wow. From maintaining the longest continuous National Guard presence at the U.S. southern border of any state to banning sanctuary cities and directing the Georgia Department of Public Safety to enhance its partnership with ICE, under Governor Kemp's leadership, Georgia has helped lead the way in tackling illegal immigration. Furthermore, one of our private sector partners recently announced an agreement with ICE to convert a Georgia facility into the largest detention facility in the nation, a move that is supported by the governor and will only bolster national efforts to detain criminal illegal immigrants and process them for deportation. The communications director for Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Sam Dubke, told Fox Digital that Arkansas is building a new 3,000-bed prison in the state. And I go on. I'm not going to read the response from every single state, but lo, my friends, many are planning some kind of expansion of these detention centers. Which brings us to the New Republic. Our leftist friends writing, are we about to have labor camps in the United States of America? If you think that's far-fetched, then you really haven't been paying attention to what the Trump administration and Republicans in Congress have been up to lately. Well, let me put it this way. Certainly, there's a possibility that because under the 13th Amendment, you can force inmates into slavery, effectively, labor. Let me bring this up for you guys. The 13th Amendment, because a lot of people are unaware of how slavery works in the United States. The 13th Amendment reads, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, wherever the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place to their jurisdiction. Congress shall have the power to enforce this by legislation. Many people think the 13th abolished slavery. It did not. It codified it. It just sets the prerequisite. You must be convicted of a crime, literally any crime. That means the government has the right to enslave you over a parking ticket. Stupid, right? It's not going to happen. I know. But in California, Kamala Harris famously kept prison inmates in jail to use as slave labor to fight wildfires. I am not exaggerating. They had prison inmates fighting wildfires, and some of them were supposed to be released, but they were kept in because they needed the slaves. So the argument here is, the left is making, if illegal immigrants are detained in these cells, perhaps labor camps, well, these people are not convicted of anything, right? So in that case, it shouldn't apply. And I don't see why in their crackpot minds they think Trump would force illegal immigrants to work. However, it's possible they offer work to them. Seriously. Imagine you've got all these illegal immigrants. You're in the process of, some of them are getting reviews for their legal challenges. And they say, would you like a job while you work here? That might be interesting. But let's hear the argument. They write, one aspect of the Republicans' big, ugly bill that didn't get enough attention until AOC elevated it over the last few days is the massive amounts of money it directs to the apprehension and detention of illegal immigrants. For the love of all that is holy, that was the purpose of the bill. See, Democrats don't pay attention to the news, so they have no idea what Republicans think. Now, in their minds, the whole thing was just to strip people of Medicaid and Medicare, which was not even a principal function of the bill. There is something in there about taking illegal immigrants off SNAP benefits, and it will actually get people off Medicaid and Medicare to a certain degree. But the Republicans were cheering for it largely because of the funding of ICE. And then AOC says at one time, these people don't read. They don't pay attention. AOC says, I don't think anyone's prepared for what they just did with ICE. This is not a simple budget increase. It's an explosion, making ICE bigger than the FBI, the Bureau of Prisons, DEA, and others combined. It is setting up to make what's happening now look like child's play, and people are disappearing. No, criminals are being arrested. And this will be the defining narrative of history. Should the Democrats win, that is what they are going to say. Should we win, it is what we are going to say. Now, in the event that Democrats and the liberals and their crackpot reality actually prevails, hope not, they will write in the history books, but the evil fascist right justified disappearing children as criminals. But they didn't break any crimes. Oh, they did. It's a violation of, 8 U.S.C. Let me pull it up for you. 8 U.S.C. 1324. Is that it? 8 U.S.C. 1324A. Alien smuggling, transporting, harboring, inducing, conspiracy, abetting. Actually, this is just one of them. One of them. I should bring this in. I always bring this up. Listen, they'll make the argument that just because it was a law doesn't mean it was just. Slavery was a law that was unjust. The issue is, can we secure our borders and maintain sovereignty? Should we lose this, the left will argue it was always unjust and fascist. Everything Hitler did, well, I shouldn't say everything, but they passed laws in Germany, and they said it was legal to do these things, even though they were abhorrent. Now, we can all agree as human beings, we understand the difference between morality and legality. In this regard, however, there is a moral question to people who come to this country illegally. They violate our laws and the wills of the people. We did not ask them to come, and we are asking them to leave. A big difference from what happened in Germany. Godwin's law, let's just say it now. But this is the argument that the left is making. And they're saying that what Trump is doing is evil and people are being disappeared. Yeah, back home. That's it. You came here. We're giving you a run. I love this. Let's set the narrative. Democrats are angry because the worst thing we're doing is giving people a ride home. I think that sounds like a nice thing. Now, to be fair, there certainly are third party, a third nation, they're calling it, deportations. Trump has just got cleared for this. Some people are being deported to South Sudan, some to El Salvador. So there are questions. The problem is the moral conundrum of, if you come to our country illegally and your home nation refuses to take you back, you don't get to stay here. What then do we do? Perhaps you, as the person who broke our law, should have considered it before you took the action. They took the action against us. Now, you might argue, but they're just looking for a better life. Sure, so were the Vikings. When they stormed the British Isles, raped and pillaged. I don't care what the reason is. We have laws. We ask you politely, stay at the door. You don't get to kick my door in. They're going to say the next day, as fate would have it, President Trump signed the bill into law. Historian Timothy Snyder posted a column on Substack under the blunt headline, Concentration Camp Labor. If AOC's post and Snyder's headline sound hyperbolic to you, consider what's actually in this new law. It includes $170 billion for immigration enforcement, about $50 billion to build a wall on the southern border, $30 billion for ICE, and $45 billion for detention camps. And I'm saying, okay, that's what I voted for. What is ICE going to do with all that money? One thing, obviously, is that they will try to hire enough people to hit MAGA. I love this. Apparatchik. Is that the one I play? Sure. Stephen Miller's target of rounding up 3,000 people a day. That's a target it apparently still hasn't even met. In other words, ICE has already been detaining thousands of people who, yes, entered the United States illegally, but ever since just lived, worked, and even paid taxes. Don't care. Don't care. I don't care. I went home for the holidays, and we landed at Midway Airport. It's the first time I've ever actually landed at Midway Airport, to be honest, despite living there. That's where I grew up. Jimmy Dore, too. Shout out Jimmy. Jimmy's from the same neighborhood as me, like 2 blocks away. I kid you not. That's so crazy. What a small world, huh? And I went to my local park, and I was sad to see the baseball fields had been overgrown with weeds. When I was a kid, we used to go there, and there was baseball games nonstop. The baseball fields were overgrown with weeds. And there were a couple of soccer goals in there, and I don't hate soccer. We also had the Chicago Fire Stadium, not too far away from us either. The point was, nobody was playing any sports at all. The baseball fields were just covered in weeds. Our culture is dying. Now, I'm not blaming all of illegal immigration on our culture dying. I don't care if it's soccer or baseball. The point was, no one was taking care of the park at all, largely because people didn't have children, because people are staying inside on the internet. But additionally, from this is a combined expounding factor. Illegal immigration as this Democrat solution to a declining population. Instead of us trying to maintain our culture, even with the population shrinking. Again, I'm not saying it has to be baseball. I do understand a lot of people pointed that out, saying baseball was an American pastime, and now nobody's playing. And there's a soccer field there. That is a component. I'm not really crying about the soccer goals because people play soccer in America too. We've got famous soccer players, and soccer is the biggest sport in the world. My point was that the field was just full of weeds. They put up the soccer goals, stopped taking care of the baseball fields, and it's the people's fault. People stopped bringing their kids out. This is not a solution to our problems. It will just compound it. So seeing all of this, they say, yes, they lived. Yes, they worked. They even paid taxes. This is the desperate solution from Democrats because, well, I think it's a problem they created. We didn't have kids. So they said, it's funny because simultaneously they said, don't have kids. And now there's not enough kids. Quick, import as many people as possible. It's destabilizing. It's terrifying, to be honest. Now, where we ultimately go, they claim that there's a fake idea of non-citizens voting. I don't think non-citizens vote all that often, to be honest. But the real issue is this. I think, actually, I don't know if I have it pulled it up. Where is it at? Third way. I don't think I have it pulled up. Are Democrats inflating their congressional vote count of illegal immigrants? The answer is yes. But I do want to make sure y'all understand. Some people have made the estimates high as 13, even 20. I don't know that it's that much. Understand that California, the estimate by 2022 was 2.6 million illegal immigrants, and Texas had 2.06. Now, what they say is, aha, this proves it. See, California and Texas balance each other out. Texas is red. No. Congressional seats are not statewide. I should pull this up from the third way. These people are so incorrigible. Here we go. I got it. I thought I had it pulled up, but I definitely got it. Is illegal immigration really a Democratic plot to sway congressional apportionment? They conclude that it's not. And they show this chart saying this proves it's not. Because their goal here, I guess, is to lie. They say Alabama loses a seat, California gains a seat, Minnesota loses a seat, New York gains a seat, Ohio loses, Texas gains. Therefore, their ultimate conclusion is that it's between 0 and 1 extra seats. They act as though congressional seats are, if the state's red, then the congressman is Republican. No. Texas has many illegal immigrants, meaning they get more blue seats, not just red. They get more Democrat votes. That's the point. Now, Electoral College, fine, make your argument. The point is clear. Texas as a government was opposing the illegal immigration and sending their illegal immigrants to other jurisdictions, which I complained about, saying all they're doing is giving blue states more congressional seats. California is trying to keep them all in. This all goes in one direction, my friends. This all leads, in my opinion, to an escalation of probable conflict in this country. Now, it's not an opinion I came up with. Certainly, while I've talked about it quite a bit, because I think it merits conversation, there are people who've dedicated their whole careers to talk of civil war. They write books about it. They give tours and talks about it. I just talk about what they're talking about. But by all means, have the memes. The left likes to claim that I'm the one who came up with the idea, advocated for it, or promote it in whatever way. Nope. The reality is there are many people who have noticed the parallels, the likelihood of civil war with the expansion and the conflict that we're seeing now. So, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up there. But we do have more in the back half of the show, which will be up at 4 p.m. at rumble.com/TimPool or youtube.com/Timcast. So smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Stay tuned. That segment will be coming up later today.